I had this gift where I could make people feel safe around me. I started developing that ability, and it later it crystallized into an understanding that the reason why I was able to be that way is I was able to be very instinctively, I could center myself. I could ground myself in the experience of my life rather than the stories of my life.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. I think we can all agree that the pandemic shifted our lives in ways we could never have imagined prior to 2020. Today's guest is Dr. Ravi Iyer, a trailblazing physician when it came to the safety of his patients and staff during the COVID crisis. He's also a motivational speaker and author of The Reaper's Dance, an account of his journey through the pandemic in the United States. Dr. Iyer has taken all of his knowledge and experience from over 40 years in the medical world to teach individuals, teams, and organizations in healthcare to discover their grounding narrative and show them methods by which they can create a 300% increase in productivity and live their best lives, both personally and professionally.
Dr. Iyer, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and wonderful to talk to both of you. 300% is the conservative end of what people accomplish when they find why they are alive on this planet.
Oh, great way to start the interview, Dr.
Yeah,
Iyer.
for sure.
Yes.
For sure. I wanted to ask you a little bit of your background, like how you grew up and maybe what led you to be a doctor. And then let's get into your book and your speaking series and that sort of thing. You want to give us some background?
Yeah, I was born in Mumbai, but I grew up in an eastern India town called Jamshedpur, which is the Indian equivalent of Pittsburgh in terms of iron ore processing and steel industry. And my father was an engineer in the company that built locomotives and trucks called Telco. And I grew up over there. I went to a mission school, actually run by a group of nuns out of Philadelphia called the Sisters of Mercy. And they ran the school there. It was called Little Flower School. I grew up there, did my schooling. From there, I went to medical school in my home state of Bihar, which which is kind of the wild west of India. Pretty rural, very feudalistic structure, uh, very very violent. Uh, People would walk around with weapons to protect themselves all the time, and noonday showdowns were not at all uncommon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I grew up in that environment. To give you an idea of how I made the decision to be a physician when I was about 14 years old. I had a cousin, but he had my same name, Ravi. But he was born with a heart defect. He was born with a Fallett's tetralogy, a very common heart defect. Most people in the lay public, they call it hole in the heart. And he came to the US when he was 3 years old. His parents brought him to the US, and he survived three cardiac surgeries but did not survive the last one. I was pretty close to that boy. I was about 14 and he was 6 when he passed. I used to babysit him. And so when he passed, I made a decision that I'm going to be a physician. Um, I think everyone who chooses these kind of lines of life, they have some kind of pivotal moment in their life which drives them to ask the question of why there needs to be death and disease, and what they can do to influence the outcome. So that was also pretty much my story. It is not a new story, it is very common. Um, but what made the shift for me was at around the same time I discovered that I had a gift. And my gift was I was able to be a space where people around me could feel safe.
Mhm.
I noticed it first when I was with my teenage friends that when I was with them, I was able to be a space where they felt a lot more confident around me, felt a lot more sure about themselves, felt a lot less upset by the teenage drama that goes on. And I realized that this was something that I was making happen. I did not know how, but I knew that I had this gift where I could make people feel safe around me. So as I went deeper and deeper into medical school, I started developing that ability, and it later came out into it crystallized into an understanding that the reason why I was able to be that way is I was able to be very instinctively, I could center myself. I could ground myself in the experience of my life rather than the stories of my life. And I'll go deeper into it a little bit later, but fundamentally that is the secret of actually being successful in anything you do, being able to find a space where you can anchor yourself to your personal rock of Gibraltar, I call it. It's
Mhm.
your personal grounding.
Interesting.
What I'm really interested in, Dr. Iyer, is take us from the point where you decided you were going to become a doctor up until the pandemic, because I know you have a clinic, you have staff that you deal with every day. And when the pandemic hit, that presented problems for you that the most of the rest of us don't even have to think about. Take us up to that point of the pandemic and because I think that what you're talking about and saying you created what people felt safe around you and you had this safe space, well, that led to exactly what I see coming out of your book called The Reaper's Dance. So if you can bring us up to that point in how you started your clinic and et cetera, that would be wonderful.
The first thing that anybody who wants to accomplish anything has to do is to find themselves in a place where they say that this is where I stand, and I take this stand because that is all that is available to me. Everyone thinks that you have to do something for a reason. Actually, the most powerful reason is when you say that I will do this or that for no other reason except because I say so. This is an expression of myself for no other reason. Just like the way water is wet and flows, and fire has light and heat in it, for no other reason except that that is the way it is. It is its natural expression. So during the pandemic, on March 1st, I was driving back and I saw this, that evening, I saw this news item that attracted my attention. And I read that and I said that, hey, this doesn't sound right. There is no reason why a virus should be spreading so fast if it was a new virus coming out in China. So let me explain to you a couple of things that when a new virus emerges, all viruses emerge from the wild. So they all are animal viruses and they jump. So when a new disease comes into the human population, it's like a boy and girl dating for the first time. The initial interactions are tentative. The virus is figuring out its place in the human body, and the human is figuring out how to deal with the virus. So the virus really never explodes and becomes widespread right on the get go. It never goes from 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000 like that. It doesn't go like that. It goes 1 to 4 and then stutters and stops. And then a few weeks pass by before the next few people get infected. Then another few weeks. And with each infection, the virus is changing its structure a little bit to become a little bit more efficient. So when I saw the news article that 50,000 or 60,000 Chinese were infected and were spreading rapidly from an unknown new virus, I turned to my friend, colleague. I said that this doesn't sound good. This looks like it's an engineered virus because it is so efficient at spreading right from the get go. Somebody has, I mean, I'm not saying that they deliberately released it, but it is not a natural virus. It has something unnatural about its behavior, and it is spreading too fast. So right then and there, I got on to Alibaba and Amazon, and I ordered a bunch of safety equipment. This is on March 4th and 5th that I did it. At that point, the pandemic announcement had not been made, no one. So I was pretty prescient in that sense. I really got a heads up on it and went ahead. Then I turned around to my staff and I said that, hey, we have PPE and that is good, but the PPE is not going to last because the PPE is single use. We need to figure out a way to use reusable PPE. And the best thing that we can get, which will work the same way, is to go and buy ski gear. So, snow pants and wind cheaters are impermeable to snow water. So, they'll be impermeable to cough and sneeze droplets just the same. So there's no reason why we can't use it. And after the end of the day, we can just put it into the hot water cycle of the dish or the washing machine and reuse it. And then I sat down with my staff and said that, do you guys trust me? Because I want to keep the clinic open. I want to keep caring for people. And they said that we trust you. Just know that we don't know how to handle this. If you are confident that you know how to handle it, then teach us how to do it, and then we'll do it. So we set up a buddy system where each person watched out for the other person. And I called it the Three Musketeer policy: one for all for one. And that became our policy through the clinic, that everyone watched out for everyone else and made sure that no one ever made a mistake. Everyone, it was no longer about, oh, you are making a mistake and a blame game. They are saying that we got everyone to say that, hey, I don't care what you're doing, I'm not going to let you make a mistake, and I'm going to watch out for you and going to catch up. I'm going to pick up after you even if you are sloppy, and you're going to pick up after me if I'm sloppy. So this way, this kind of shared cost, where everyone picked up the burden of being safe for their fellow person, not for themselves. We said you are going to be safe for the other person, not for yourself. All right, and that is was diametrically opposite to the conversation going on in the public, where in the
True.
public it was each person for themselves and the devil take the hindmost. you know uh, that that was the number one demarcation between what we created here versus what was going on all around us. And then we did not just say it, we put ourselves at risk to execute that. And when people saw us putting ourselves at risk to execute, and not just we are putting ourselves at risk for our safety, but we are putting ourselves at risk such that you are safe, people started saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to be on their team. I want to. So the community started opening up. Then they started adopting methods like us, nothing fancy, just the same principle. If I can help my fellow person be safe, I'll help them. I don't care about myself, and in their safety lies my safety. If they are well, then I am well. In this way, it like a ripple, it spread out all around us. And this, we maintained it all through 2020, through 2021. And what was amazing to us, that I swear that there are times when we would sit down and we would talk, and we would say, I can't believe how well this is working for us. And we turn on the TV, and all we are hearing is people flouting rules, just being in your face, and for 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 literally stupid reasons.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
It was so stupid because uh, people were all right. So, for example, people opposing the lockdowns. I believe that the lockdown was a ineffective mechanism, but the way to fight it would have been what we did. Would have been to say that, hey, listen, look at us. We are keeping each other safe, and we are not denying the virus. We are not saying that the virus is a hoax. We are being careful, but we are keeping each other safe, and therefore we are able to have an open business. Therefore, we are making money. We, our businesses were open. Our the restaurants who followed our our lead remained open at a time when everyone else was closed, and they made a killing. Imagine the whole world businesses were all closed, and you're the only business open to give service. They were mobbed
Yeah.
people,
Right.
and they made a killing. They said that this is the most this was the most profitable year they ever had, was 2020 and 2021.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands and all because of this simple principle, be your brother's keeper. And if we could have done that, so at the end of the pandemic, when all of this passed, I looked around, and in 2022 December, Thanksgiving, we were having a conversation about how we had a conversation of excess mortality. So somebody in my family were there, and they popped up the statistics that Canada, just a few hundred miles north of us, a similar developed country, had 200,000 less deaths than the US. And so we talked about it, and we said that that is so tragic that we did not I mean, I knew that we are going to have deaths, but why would we have to have 1.1 million deaths? We didn't need to have 1.1 million deaths. We could have had a lot less. So I said that the lessons of the pandemic will get lost. I need to write this down. I need to write it out. So that's when I started writing the book. Once I wrote the book, I recognized two things. One is writing the book is the easiest part. Marketing is the hardest part.
Right.
I did not get that right. Most people start marketing the book even while before they finish writing it. I wrote it and then started looking around as, okay, how am I going to market it? So anyway, so then I started coming on podcasts, and between July and November, I've now come on almost 50 or 60 podcasts, and talking about the book. And then I said, okay, now, and the idea was to take this message forward as to, you are not the narratives that pop up for you. And that is the lesson, basically, that at any given moment, your mind takes the events of your life and constructs a story. The stories you create are unique to you, and they are partly influenced by the biological structure of yourself, your gender, and your socio-economic background and raising up.
Mm-hmm.
But these stories that are popping up is not reality. What is real is photons striking your retina, giving you color and light. What is real is wind hitting your eardrum, giving you sound. What is real is molecules drifting up your nose, falling on your tongue, falling on your skin, giving you smells, taste, and touch. Out of these molecular impacts, of environment against you, life hitting you as blows. Out of these impacts, your mind creates stories. And you think these stories are real. No, this is real. Between this and the story is a 3 second space of pure clarity, a 3 second space of silence where you can stand in that space and you can see the story developing. And you have choice when you stand like that. When you are not already entrapped in the story, you stand in that space of experience, you see the story developing, you have choice, and you can decide whether you want to let the story live or you want to let the story die. And to make it live, all you have to do is direct your attention on it. To make it die, all you have to do is direct your attention elsewhere, and the story dies, the narrative dies, the thought collapses. This is power. And if you have power like this, you can shape the way life manifests for yourself. And
Hmm.
that is my lesson. That is how I kept people safe in the pandemic. I showed them how to construct their life, manifest their life. I showed them which story they needed to pay attention to.
Interesting,
Brilliant,
interesting.
brilliantly
And
put.
is that your I know you're doing a lot of speaking now. Is that the crux of
Yeah,
what
yeah,
your TED Talks are?
that is
Yep.
it.
And
That is
congratulations on your recently booked TED Talks, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly it is. Whether it is democracies, whether it is nations falling apart, nations fall apart on an us versus them narrative.
Sure.
That is all it's. People live their life in what I call the not enough life. They live the life as if the things that they need most to sustain themselves, to nurture themselves, to reward and validate themselves are in perpetual short supply. They live it as
Mhm.
if they don't grab it right now, it's going to disappear. Somebody else is going to take away, or it'll decay, it will die out, or it'll disappear without, never to return for them. They'll never get the chance again. That is stupid.
Right.
And the reason they feel that is because they don't know how to construct that opportunity. They don't know how to
Mm.
create. They are only consumers of life. They are not creators of life. When you're a consumer of life, you're a victim of life. You have to passively wait for life to present itself in the right way for you to enjoy and have joy, happiness, and success. You cannot make life happen. You are passively waiting for life to happen unto you. Whereas when you're a creator, when you are able to stand in that silence of the experience of life, you can decide how you want to make this experience manifest. You create it right at that moment. You
Mhm.
create the story for yourself.
That is beautiful, Dr. Iyer. And tell me, like, when you do your speaking, and you also have coaching programs available too to help people through this narrative
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah, who would you say you're best suited to serve? Who's most likely to it, who is your message most likely to resonate with?
So there are two things to that, right? One is, knowledge is actually cheap. There are a lot of people who know it, but not everyone gets to manifest that knowledge because not everyone gets a platform. And the world only gives people platform based on perceptions of credibility. All right. So for me, my credibility is in the healthcare field. So even though I can walk into Google and teach them everything I teach my people, Google is not likely to listen to me at this stage of my life because they don't see me as a business, an MBA or a suit. They see me as a doctor. They're going to say, what does a doctor know about teaching us how to be high performance? But a doctor is probably the best coach you can ever get because we deal with life. The way I do it is I teach people to transcend the circumstances of their life, not just biological. Anything that blocks them, I show you how to transcend it. And what I do is right now, to answer your question, who is my current most uh, ideal population is the healthcare institutions. They are approaching me. I'm giving a breakout session talk on high performance teams and recruitment and retention, and how to combat physician burnout at the Healthcare Leadership Association's conference in September this year. So that's where I have started talking. But that's not going to be my end goal. Eventually, it is what I do and what I do very well has applications in anyone who wants to work at a high performance level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that that's what you want your legacy to be in the healthcare industry is teaching
Yeah,
people?
because people are very, very good about knowing things, how to fix a refrigerator, how to fix a car, how to change a tire. Everyone, the whole world is fixated about knowing. But knowing how to play tennis does not make you Bjorn Borg. It does not make you Andre Agassi. The reason Andre Agassi is because he knows how to be a tennis player. Being is different than knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent.
Beautiful.
Being, so, and this is something very simple. There are a lot of doctors who know medicine, but they are not doctors. They don't know how to be doctors. The being of a doctor, the being of a leader, the being of an executive is different than knowing a market strategy, knowing how to read a spreadsheet, or knowing how to run a business. That is not, being is different than knowing. What I do is teach people how to be.
Mm.
Knowing only gives you the tools. Being teaches you the context and situations of when you would use which tool, and to what extent you would use it, and when you would discard a tool and decide to adapt. So that is being. Being is far more rich and far more difficult and far more ephemeral than knowing.
That
Yeah.
is a beautiful, like, we could go on with you forever, Dr. Iyer. We're right up against time, and what a beautiful way to end this particular podcast.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back on again and talk a little bit more about how you accomplish that. If somebody is struggling between knowing and being, I'd love to have you back on for that. But in the meantime, tell everybody how they can learn more about you.
Oh, I have a website called just www.driyer.com, driyer.com, and that's my umbrella website. You can reach almost everything I do everywhere.
You are a beacon in the healthcare world, and I just
Yeah.
want to thank you for bringing everything to light. Guys, I am almost finished, like maybe less than an hour away from being finished with Dr. Iyer's book, The Reaper's Dance. I highly recommend it for a greater understanding of what really happened during the pandemic, and how, when we're faced with this, with such a catastrophic event in our future, which is no doubt a when, not an if, that we'll know better. We'll know how to do it better.
Thank you.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at brandfaceguide.com.